Hey, Facebook, Happy New Year. It's almost 2022. Today's New Year's Eve. So if you're watching this tomorrow, Happy New Year officially. It is 2022. What great numbers. Bunch of twos. I think that's fun. But I wanted to get on and just talk a little bit about, you know, how are you preparing for the new year? It's about to be a whole new year. This is the time when everybody starts putting New Year's resolutions together. People start setting goals. And, I know that I am. I don't know if you guys are. If you are, put it in the comments. And I also want to talk about a little bit of like what I think's coming and in the community that I live in. So if you're new to the page, because I know we're always picking up new people, we talk about all sorts of stuff here, mainly, you know, funny stuff, family stuff, and we also talk about faith stuff. And so, in the community that I'm in, when it comes to faith, we have this element, it's kind of like a futurist element, a predictive element. And so we call that like the prophetic. And so I wanted to talk about that too, of like, what are other people saying about what's coming? And then what do you think about it? So first, let's talk about, are you putting things together in terms of your goals for next year? And if you're not, I want to encourage you to do that. Because what happens is, right, the necessity of the urgent starts to dictate what our lives look like. And before you know it, it's like this weekend, you're like, I'm going to take down the Christmas decorations. I'm going to put them all back in the attic. You're planning like, oh, I got to take the kids back to school. And so all these things start kind of piling in. And if we're not intentional, kind of during this lull time between Christmas and New Year's, and really stop and reflect on, what happened last year, but then also in this coming year, this time next year, what do I want to have in my life that I don't currently have right now? What are some things, if I could do something different, what would that look like? Is it a new job? Is it, do you want to write a book? Do you want more family time? Do you want to have a different type of relationship with somebody? What does that look like? You, a year from now, what would you like to look back on and say, hey, I finally did that thing. I finally got that thing. Maybe it's like, I'd like to lose 30 pounds, whatever. What does that look like? Okay. So the important thing is, if this is point A and you map out a couple things that are like, hey, that's point B a year from now, the next most important step is intentionality and then starting to set those goals, right? So if we wanted to lose weight, we're either going to start walking, we're going to make time for that. If you want to write a book, maybe you start, blocking off a day during the week in the evenings or in the afternoon. If you want to start that entrepreneurial project, you're like, I'm going to start getting up early at like 5 a.m. before I got to go into the office. I'm going to work on that, whatever it is. Or if you want to have like different relationships with people, I'm going to make time for that person. I'm going to prioritize that person. One of the things my friend Lance says is, this time of year, he kind of really looks at a top 10 list of relationships and who does he really want to prioritize that year? Because at times like I said, we all get so busy, and like, who are the people we want to intentionally make time for? Who are the friends that, we want to pull in a little bit closer and say, I just want to make sure we have that, coffee date every week with this person. I really want to make sure either I'm mentoring them or being mentored or just maintaining that friendship that you have. So anyways, I want you all to be thinking about stuff like this because, like I said, when you don't, it just kind of, passes us by. And before you know it, a year from now, you're the same person you were a year ago. And what type of books do you want to read this year? Maybe that's something to think about. It's like, there's so many great books out there that they're almost like personal development stuff that just have so much wisdom locked up in them. And sometimes it's like one little nugget out of that can totally revolutionize how you view yourself or how you view others. So anyways, I wanted to get that out there first. The other thing, I was kind of like, you ever tell jokes to yourself? Do you ever like make a joke and you laugh at your own joke? You're like, but some of the things I see just sometimes in the prophetic community is this, it doesn't always kind of feel like the same word. I guess that's what I was going to say. It always kind of feels like the same word. It's always like, it's the year of harvest. It's the year of breakthrough. It's the year of just abundance. This is the year that all the souls are going to come into the kingdom of God. And I'm like, I don't at all mock the spirit. But the thing that I think, it's like, why is it always like that? Like, why is it always like that? And, I can understand to a certain extent the psychology of wanting to say things like that, because this time of year for some people is not the best time of year. I mean, some people are very isolated, are on their own, have had a very difficult year, have lost people they love, and so everybody's at different stages. So when you get to a time of year of like Christmas and New Year's, there's a lot of like mental health issues that are happening around this time. And so I think that's something to consider. I think that it's a great time to speak hope into people's lives. But I guess I'm just saying too, I would really love to see, you know, how do I say this? I'm like, I guess it's like, it's more a word of exhortation that I feel a lot of times is being released around this time of year versus let's say something like a word of knowledge, right? Like last year, somebody would have said, or in 2020, this is going to be the year of COVID and medical issues. And it's like, that's never seems to be like the thing that gets released. Again, nobody wants that word. Nobody wants the word that's like, hey, Trump's probably not going to pull out the election here. He's going to win. It's going to be stolen. And then, blah, blah, blah. Biden's going to be there. Like, no one really says that type of stuff. And so I'm just saying within the prophetic community, sometimes it's leaving something to be desired. Let's say that. And again, I don't knock anybody. I mean, all these people. I love that. I'm just kind of pointing out the obvious, right? And so what do we do with that? What's really going to happen in 2022? Is it, is this really like the year? I kind of feel like what I think? I feel like things get so bad. You ever live your life and get real sick, or your kid gets real sick? And this is what happens for me. I all of a sudden get like so congruent, and I'm like, I'm not in the word like I need to be. I'm not praying like I need to be. I'm not going to church like I need to be. And all of a sudden I get like super congruent because all these things in my life are like shaking around me, and it's scary. And I know under pressure, I know where to go find hope. I know where to go find life and the source of life. And so as much as it's been shaking this last year, with the economic policies that have been enacted, with the continued crisis at the border, just really weathering everything since the inauguration. It's almost like I said this the other day in our broadcast, but it's almost like I have like outrage fatigue. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I'm so fatigued from being like just outraged constantly. It's just there's always something. There's always something to be like shocked and mad and frustrated about. And that's one of the reasons I share so much funny content, because it's not putting my head in the sand, but it's like maintaining a balance. Like I got to be able to laugh. I can't have this outrage steal my joy and my happiness and my buoyancy. It's like I still have to show up for people. I got a family and kids to show up for. Like I can't be all depressed and outraged and angry constantly. Like that's not the best version of myself. So anyways, I kind of went off on a tangent there. But to come back to what I was talking about, what do I really think is coming next year? And I don't know if it's going to be like, at least for me, like my gut is looking at all like I would say like signposts, taking in all of the data, the Fed saying that they're going to raise interest rates 3 times. I don't think that looks good for us economically. The rampant spending, I don't think that looks good for us. The looming HR 1, which is the bill in the House that's going to federalize elections, I don't know what that's going to do by the time midterms get here. If that passes somehow and gets through the Senate somehow, I don't know what that does to elections. I'm not fully confident the midterms and our electoral process has even really been reformed sufficiently, if at all. And so even though I think there's sentiments for a red wave, and I know it's there, and I know it's going to show up, and I know it's going to be there, I'm not fully confident. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not even sure if that's going to play out the way that we want it to play out, the way that it should play out. So, which is kind of a weird, scary thing to say. Even with coronavirus, taking in new data of, Biden saying, hey, there's no federal solution to the coronavirus. And then the dropping a 10-day quarantine to a 5-day quarantine, and then just coming out and saying, hey, you know what, actually the PCR tests really aren't that reliable. We're not going to use them next year. I'm also wondering, like, there's this other angle I'm thinking. This is how my brain works, okay? The way that my brain works and why I'm normally in operations is that I look at all possible scenarios. My brain has this unique capacity to like look at a situation and then it's like I see all the possible universes of how this could play out. And so I'm just telling you, if like next year, one possible thing is sure, we still have coronavirus. One possible thing is a really bad variant comes out next year and they're going to try to tighten down, regulations again, and maybe things will happen with the election that way. We'll do mail-in voting again. Or a totally different scenario might be that they declare victory over coronavirus. It's like, hey, we beat it. Turns out that Omicron variant came through and everybody's got natural immunity now and everybody's vaccinated. And what if they claim like some like victory over it and run with that angle? So I don't know, that's putting your mind in the mind of a Democrat, of what would a Democrat do? What would an elitist do that was trying to maintain power and control over the minds of millions? It's a very difficult thing to try to figure out. But anyways, those are just some other scenarios. I really do think next year is going to be a big financial year. And whether it's really outside of inflation on like the front burner for a lot of people, or if all this financial change is going to happen in the back end, again, there's really practical things that are coming out. And so, let me say this. One of them you can go Google. It's called ISO 222. And that is this idea that the financial institutions are saying, hey, we're all using totally different protocols, communications for us to talk together. And so here's a proposed plan so that globally all the banking systems can kind of like speak the same computer language, and how that's going to be facilitated. You can go look it up. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's actually over there on the Fed's website. And so these are things that are coming to central banks this next year, really, and over the next couple of years. And so anyways, that's happening kind of on the behind the scenes, but I think there's a lot of implications for us, almost like the cogs in the wheel in the machine, of how they probably view all of us, of how we bank, of what's going to happen with the dollar with inflation. The International Monetary Fund is going to reassess their basket of currencies. That process kind of starts around I want to say, I know they reassess it in July, but I feel like the process starts a couple months before that. And so what does that look like? Well, a couple years ago, they added in the Chinese, I think you say yuan, right? I think it's yuan. If I'm wrong, put it in the chat. But they added them in a few years ago, like 5 or 6 years ago. And so what would we see? Well, maybe the terrible financial policies of, printing trillions of dollars over the last really like 6 years, even from when COVID started with Trump, that was the solution. It's like everybody's going to get paid, everybody's getting money. We're just printing. And now all of our prices are going up and up and up. It's just getting worse and worse. And it's not just supply and demand that's driving that price change. And so what's going to happen is the International Monetary Fund going to say, you know what, like the American dollar just isn't what it used to be. And we're going to really reassess it and again, a couple different scenarios. Either the dollar no longer maintains its status as the world's reserve currency, or maybe the International Monetary Fund proposes its own type of digital currency. I feel like that could be a possibility, if not this round, maybe 5 years from now. But there's a lot of things that are changing in the financial world. Like when we went from like horse and buggy to cars, that's kind of the equivalent of what's happening in the financial world right now. And we really don't know about it. So you can go research it. I'll go check it out. But that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of things are kind of coming to a head next year. And, this verse in Jeremiah is one that I keep looking at over and over again. And it says, it's the Lord talking to Jeremiah. And he says, today I've set you over the kingdoms to pull down, tear down, destroy, and to build and to plant. And so a lot of times, right, like we focus on the building and the planting. The church always focuses on let's build, let's plant, let's build churches, let's plant churches, let's build churches, let's plant churches. And even when you look at, the whole slogan that's everywhere globally, the build back better. We're going to build back better, build back better. And so I put it on my page a few times, but, before you can build and plant, you first need to tear down and destroy the existing infrastructure. Whatever's there, you have to pull it down. Anytime you remodel a house, right? You can get a house and it's a fixer-upper, well, or it could be a beautiful house, but I want to change it. So what are you going to do? You're going to take down walls, you're going to pull out the drywall, you're going to demolish, whatever countertop you've got there, you're going to put new stuff in. And then what are you going to do? Build it back better. And so it's, in some ways, it's a biblical principle. And that's why I look at it and I'm like, what we're going through right now, what we're living through is a tearing down time, a destroying time. And it's actually being done very fast. I mean, a lot faster than we even realize. And just this past year, it's like you've seen a lot of legislation that's been put in that isn't good for America. And so anyways, I just really think there is an opportunity, though, that if we can flip the house, if we can win this year in midterms and tap the brakes on the crazy economic policy that's going out, we have a chance to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, or the analogy, but basically like intercept that ball and then run it in a different direction. Because the reality is how life was before COVID, we're not going to go back to. All of that's changed. And now normal is up for debate. And so right now that's where we're at, where it's like, what's normal going to be? What is life past COVID? What is life on the other side of all of this going to look like? And so anyways, I think as it shakes, as things continue to shake, because it will continue to shake. And I do think, I hate to be this way, but, I have a food supply. I have a food supply for my family. I got one right before COVID. The word that the Lord was telling me was prepare. You need to prepare. And so I had this app called Acorns, and it takes like all of my extra change in a transaction and it puts it into an investment account. So I had like, I don't know, a couple $1,000s there, and I have a small family and I need to plan for 4 people. And so I got a food supply for like 6 months, and I took some of that money out that I really kind of forgot was there, and I got a food supply. But, the things that I'm kind of hearing is like early next year, it's just, we're going to have certain foods we're not even going to be able to have access to. And I don't think it's going to get so bad that it's like we've got bread lines. I don't think that. I just think like the inconvenience of it all is going to be like so noticeable. And why not be prepared? Why not have something in case, something did happen and you didn't have access to food for like 2 weeks? Like, for instance, we had the big Texas freeze last year. Like, you can't go anywhere. So it's like, wow, to have something for 2 weeks would be great, or when anytime like a hurricane comes through in a place, it's like, you know what, having a way to heat water and to cook food, it's just practical. It's like, it's a skill, it's a lost art, right? So it's like, why not have some stuff like that? So that's what I did. And that's what I'm feeling. It's like, you might as well like prepare, like, wait, it's like hope for the best, but also prepare. And so I think that looks different for a lot of people. I do think it's the financial stuff next year is going to be, like I said, I don't know if it's going to be on the forefront, but it's definitely happening kind of behind the scenes, which you could go look it up, right? Like I said, you can go to the Fed website, you can go to International Monetary Fund, you can go look up ISO 222, all that stuff's on the internet. You can go find it. Just making you aware of it. So I think financially, one of the other things I'm going to practically do is take some of the money that is in my savings and buy gold and silver. And I'm not going to go like crazy and buy a bunch of stuff, but enough where you feel like, okay, if something happened again, let's say the dollar just goes, it's like toilet paper, like in Venezuela, that would happen probably after July. If the International Monetary Fund kind of reassesses our standing, that would be really crazy if that happened. It would be really crazy. So then my mind's like, what if it's so crazy that they pause the midterm elections? Anyways, that's my crazy brain. Probably none of that's going to happen. It's just, like I said, I think of all scenarios. So what should you do? It's like, okay, maybe get some gold and silver. Maybe just have a little bit on hand. Or if you needed to trade with a neighbor or something like that. So anyways, just random stuff I think about in my weird prepper type of a brain. Um, but I hope I never have to use any of it. I hope none of that really happens. But I do think that in order for things to change, which, another thing you can go check out if you haven't looked at it yet is in the World Economic Forum, look at the 2030 agenda. And so that is basically like the big business plan for your life. So the World Economic Forum, right? It's like the largest companies. I think you have to have some insane amount of money to even be a part of it as a company. And so it's like Walmart, it's CVS, it's like huge companies. And so they're always trying to figure out like how to do business better, how to build a better world and all sorts of stuff. But it's really not necessarily for us. It would be for them. And so, part of that 2030 agenda, it's like you're not going to own anything and you're going to love it. And you're like, I don't know if I would love that. Like you're going to rent your house. And I don't know about you, but where I live, a lot of the people buying houses here are actually like huge portfolio companies, like a Vanguard or a BlackRock are buying up homes all over the place. And so that's kind of strange too. And they're paying a lot of money over, right? 50,000, 75,000. And so you got to look at that. You're like, wonder what that's about. Wonder what's coming there. So anyways, like I said, I don't have all the answers. I just kind of look at all the data and I'm like, this is really suspect. But the best I could come up with is like I said, it's like there's that 2030 agenda that there's an elite group of people and they're doing their best to consolidate power away from individuals, away from sovereign individuals who then make up sovereign nations, and they want to exercise control over all of that. And so, I think next year is gonna have a lot of shaking. In the midst of it, though, to go back to where I started, is that's the time when people turn to God. That's the time when people turn to the Lord and seek hope and direction. Um, and honestly, and turn to your neighbor too. It's like when we had the big Texas freeze, it was neighbors helping neighbors. And I really do think God right now in this hour is giving a lot of very smart men and women, um, a plan for the future, a plan for that difficult time. It's like, let me say it this way, like, how God told Noah that he needs to build a boat, and he's like, this is what the boat's got to look like. I feel like God's preparing Noah's in this hour so that when this financial storm does hit, I feel like there's going to be arks of refuge for people that have been prepared. And I feel like there are people in the body of Christ that are being assigned those roles right now as Noahs to help care for other people. So I think that as well. And I, there I have a handful of other peers that I think God is telling that to say, no, this is the role that you play in the body of Christ. Like you're gonna do this. And like I said, I don't think it's gonna get like dystopian where we're gonna have like, torn clothes walking around in deserts. I don't think it's gonna get like that. I think it's like a managed decline is what it more feels like to me. But for your average people that are living, like paycheck to paycheck, I think that's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be difficult, and yeah, and so, the hope word that I would give you is that I think God's preparing people to help take care of the body of Christ. I really do. So, anyways, I could be totally wrong, but those are the things I'm thinking about, and on a funny note, I was telling Larry last night, we were talking about, kind of a little bit about this, about how, oh, it's the year of harvest, it's the year of harvest, the year of harvest, it's like always like the word at the beginning of the year. And I was like, I'll be honest, after Christmas and all of the cookies that I've made, I'm done with a harvest. This is the year of moderation for me. This is the year of self-control for me. So, you know how it goes. You're just like, it's like, okay, like, hey, there's so much abundance and I'm just eating too much. So I'm going to work on that. I've got a couple different goals. I'd like to work on my book this year. I'd like to just get a little healthier, walk a little bit. I was thinking I would have like this rule, because if you follow me, I do a decent amount of like TikTok, but I was like, I'm gonna do TikTok and treadmill. I'm only gonna watch TikTok when I'm on the treadmill. That's what I was thinking. I just walk and swipe at the same time. So maybe you could do that. You can Instagram and treadmill. I would like, what are some other things on my list this year? Um, I would like to we're going to do a couple different events with Lance, and we've had a lot of people. We used to do something called a dream trip. And so I think we're going to do a dream trip this next year, which is kind of fun. It's kind of focused on personal development, but an element we want to add into it. I'm thinking right now, like May, I'm kind of thinking Florida, um, and I might scout out a couple hotels down there. But I think we want to do this component of I'm going to call it wealth strategies or asset management or asset protection. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but some of the things we're talking about, how do you practically plan for it? If you don't have money saved, how do you kind of make money passively, maybe online doing different things? Um, so that's some ideas. I still have a desire. I think Lance is supposed to go on tour. This is a word that I received when I was at Shayon's church close to Easter, and I like got up out of bed, and the Lord was like, Lance needs to go on tour. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. And so we have this tendency to like overcomplicate things. It's like it gets overly creative, but I really am just kind of like almost like you would see like John Chris tour dates. I kind of felt like that. It's like you would see like Lance tour dates, and it's kind of him just doing his shtick. And it's like I almost want to give him like two boards, a keyboard and a whiteboard, and like just do your thing. And so that's something we're thinking about. I do think too, possibly something before midterms, not a full-on book, but like a smaller booklet, might need to go out. So yeah, and the other thing, like we've never really figured out how to master, but it's like the mobilization of people, kind of coming together and organizing. That's still kind of missing. And I haven't done it yet. I haven't done an expose on this yet, but the Democrats are way more organized than we are. I mean, way more organized. And so like we got AOC and I don't know how you say her name. It's like Rashid Tlaib, you know that one. Ilhan Omar, all those and like the squad came through an organization called Justice Democrats, and they held like application processes. They almost like auditions, but then they brought like the top 80 to a retreat and then hand selected like AOC and said, okay, you're going to run in this district and this person's going to run in this district. And so they picked all these different people and they put them up there, and then they helped fund it and run. You guys, we don't have anything like that. Okay. Like I have the privilege of like knowing a lot of these different organizations, and we're not organized like that. Like Christians love each other, but they don't work together. And I should just say even conservatives, because it's the party itself of conservatism is so diverse at this point, because more and more people who are moderates or even like liberal are coming over because they're not radical progressive. And so like this idea of, conservative values is really changing. There's social conservatives, which is what Christians would be, but then there's just like fiscal conservatives, which are a part of the umbrella too. So it's just interesting to kind of see. But I forgot where I was going with that. Dang. There's like an ambulance behind me, and it kind of threw me off. So yeah. So we were talking about like things we might do next year. So anyways, let me know what you're thinking about doing next year. Maybe you would have something inspiring, and you could put it in the comments, and then I might steal your idea. We could both do it. But yeah, set goals, guys. Like let's really, what do you want? How do you want to look differently next year? What do you want to be different in your life? What would you like to have in your hand that you didn't have before? Oh, you know what else I want to do? I want to get like 3 investment properties. Okay. So this is another, passive income wealth strategy that I want to find, and not really expensive homes, but I'm taking this course right now that shows you how to do it without like putting any money down. And And you're looking for homes that are like $100,000, and then you can make passive rental income off of them. And so that's something I'm interested in figuring out and doing. Not like in the first or second quarter. This is more like third quarter, fourth quarter of next year. But I was like, man, that would be so cool. I would have passive income that does that. The other thing, I'm like, I want to solidify my cryptocurrency portfolio. That's important to me. Making sure I like kind of short up investments there. Also, maybe some stuff in the stock market of just different projects that I'm thinking about. But see, that's so hard to gauge. It's like if this financial stuff happens, you're like, do I wait? Do I go now? Do I wait till next year? So again, I don't have all the answers. I'm just telling you what I'm thinking about. And what else? And then I still want to make my list of people like Lance was talking about. So I want to come up with maybe 5 to 10 relationships I really want to prioritize this year and just make sure I'm investing there intentionally. So yeah, and then the other thing too, I really feel strongly about this coming year is I do think, not to be cliche, but I do think, like I'm saying, like as things shake, I think people are going to turn to the Lord, and I think we're going to see more of these. Like how Mario Murillo right now is like doing these tent revivals. I can't think of their names right now. Jesse and Parker. What's her last name? Jesse and Parker Green? Is it Green? If you know it, put in the comments. But they're also doing revivals right now. So I do think there is like awakening that's coming. And I do think that more and more Christians are going to awaken to the role and the responsibility that they have civically to vote, to sow. Your vote's kind of like a seed. You have to steward it correctly. You can't be passive about it. And so I think that's coming too this year. I don't know the degree to which it's all going to take off or anything like that, but I think it's important. And I'm also going to exhort you to, I know everybody knocks TikTok, right? I got nothing to hide. Like, I know, if I'm worried about my data, it's like Google's got it, everybody's got it. But I want to tell you, there's 1 billion users over there a month on TikTok, half of which are under, I want to say 25, I saw the other day, a quarter of which are under 16. So if you've got a heart for young people and you want to reach the next generation with the gospel and the love of Jesus Christ, please understand that's the platform to be on. So if you're like a youth minister, you got anything like that, that's the place to be. The other idea that I had, tell me what you think about this idea, okay? I've been kicking this idea around, and then somebody like messaged me on Facebook, and they're like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's the same idea I had. But this whole thing with the metaverse, okay? So metaverse just isn't Facebook, just so you know. It's not just Facebook. It's a lot of different applications right now. And so that's why everybody kind of got mad at Facebook, because they're like, you can't just take the title of metaverse. Metaverse is like all these applications or games and things that you could interact in. You can't just claim it as your own. It's like saying like you're ABC and you're like, we're going to change our name to television. And you're like, no, you can't do that. So just so you understand, it's not just Facebook. But I was thinking about, like, they have this one called the Sandbox that's really popular right now. And they have a couple other ones that are kind of popular. And I was like, what if I bought land in the metaverse, right? Like, what if I did like a fundraiser to buy land in the metaverse? But then in the metaverses, we do one of two things. Tell me which one you like more. Okay, we're either going to preach the gospel directly, like to have 24/7 like ministers in the metaverse interacting with the other people in the metaverse and just, loving on people, telling them about the gospel. Or we go more of the, mega church route, if you will. And we're just there for people. We're just like, it's a place of love and positivity and, just a safe place for people to come. And obviously we'll minister to them. But it's like, what do you think is a better strategy? Like, be kind of more overt with the gospel in the metaverse, or be more like, there's just like degrees to like how much am I going to lead with the gospel here, or am I going to try to build rapport a little bit first, a little bit of a relationship first. So anyways, I mean, could you imagine you can like give prophetic words in the metaverse, right? Like Holy Spirit's Holy Spirit. So it's like you meet somebody there and all of a sudden you're just like you're like, oh, I got a word for you. It could be, they could live in like India, and you're like, hey, God's telling me da 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 about your daughter, and he's going to heal that right now. Like, wouldn't that be awesome? I mean, talk about, okay, hear me out. Hear me out. I mean, what an amazing ability to reach other countries that it's like you and I don't normally have access to. Like, you can minister to people in Pakistan, you can minister to people in Iraq, because you know what, they're going to be in the metaverse, and we'll all be like there talking and stuff. So anyways, I'm not saying we're going to become like, what's that thing? Like Bannon always talks about, a transhumanism. I don't want an implant in my brain like Elon wants to do, but there's opportunity to share the gospel with people. That's why it's so important to like know these things and explore these things. And like, obviously, yes, let's like be cautious and not like go all in. I don't want to be a cyborg, but I think we should be thinking about how we do these things. So anyways, let me know if you think I should do it. Should I do this like metaverse? Because there's a couple different ones. There's like 3 or 4 kind of popular ones right now, and I'm like, it's not cheap, guys. The Sandbox, to buy land in the Sandbox right now, it's almost $22,000 just to get like this little tiny square. It's crazy. And so, but you can go in there with like your little avatar, and you could build stuff. You could build like a church on it, or just like a fun hangout space. I don't know. These are the things I think about. And I'm just trying to figure out if I should do it or not. But somebody should do it. I don't know if I'm called to do it, but it's really an interesting idea. Thank you for saying that the color palette looks great, but I need one more piece of advice. So plums, wine colors look fantastic on me, okay? So I love fall. I love fall. Greens, plums, wine, kind of this yellowy color. Love it. Guys, what the heck am I supposed to wear in the summertime? Like, what color palette am I supposed to wear in the summertime? Because I never look this good during summertime. And a lot of it, too, right? It's layers. Layers are always so flattering. So yeah, let me know. Let me know what color, if you're like a makeup artist or something like that, please advise. What color palettes? Is it like light blues? What am I supposed to be wearing during summer? Because I know we're in winter, but I get this point, and I'm like, I just don't know what I'm supposed to wear. It just doesn't look as good as these colors do. So, oh, corals and peaches. Yes, you know what? I do a lot of coral. I do a lot of coral during the summer. It looks so good. All right, well, hey, if you've been hanging with me this long, thanks so much. I appreciate it. It's not just my mom who hangs this long. There's like 35 of you. I'm so flattered. But yeah, it's normally my mom or my aunt that are like, hey, we watched your broadcast. It was so great. I'm like, hey, thanks. So yeah, there's 35 of you that are loving on me. I appreciate that. So let me know, share it. Let me know what you think your predictions are. Put that in the comments. What do you think's coming? What do you think I missed? What do you think I should be looking at? And I just want to help people get ready for next